Hello and welcome to Heart and Seek, the podcast where we unravel the threads that bind us. With curious minds and open hearts, we dive into personal stories, shared experiences, and the intricate connections that shape our lives. I'm your host, Chanda, and together we'll explore what it means to be human across borders, beliefs, and backgrounds. Welcome to episode 1 of Heart and Seek. If you're returning, thank you for coming back. And if it's your first time here, I love that you've joined me. I hope you stick around. Today, I share a part of my origin story and take you back to where it all started for me, to my formative years and some of the early experiences that shaped my life. I also wanted to share a bit about what led me to starting a podcast in the first place and what I've had to overcome to get here. So why start a podcast? In conversations I've had over the years with family, friends, colleagues, and acquaintances, I've sometimes felt a disconnect and a sense of separation where we aren't really able to connect fully. There's a tentativeness and a nervousness at times that seems to get in the way of people connecting across those borders, beliefs, and backgrounds. In my opinion, this could be the result of focusing too much on how different we are rather than celebrating our sameness, the common threads. Personally, I thrive on intimate, deep conversation because for me, that's the way to build genuine relationships. When we take our masks off and get really curious, when we're brave enough to ask questions and to answer them, we start to see each other beyond the surface. Now, I realize it takes emotional safety to be vulnerable, and that's not always easy to build. We're not often helped by the environments we find ourselves interacting in, so I thought storytelling could be a powerful way to hear each other out. I tend to think of vulnerability and curiosity as acts of courage, so it means that everyone on all sides of the dividing lines, across age, gender, race, religion, politics, and otherwise, has to be open to meeting each other where we're at, bearing it all, asking and listening. In these first episodes, I talk about my story to open up the conversation and to show that I've got some skin in the game. I'm starting this as a solo podcast, but I hope that won't always be the case. I also have a confession to make about the timing of this because I could have started or published a podcast some time ago. I've wanted to start one for a number of years, and the only reason why it's taken me this long is because I've gotten in my own way. I jokingly call myself a recovering perfectionist, and I've questioned whether I would have had anything to say that would be of value or meaningful. I've judged myself against the standards of some established podcasts that I've listened to, and so it wasn't going to be right until I had the right equipment, the perfect graphics, the right level of knowledge, the perfect topics and messages. I told myself time and time again I needed to read more books, more articles, listen to even more podcasts, shows, and interviews. Sounds exhausting, doesn't it? So I did that. I listened to countless videos and audio of people encouraging others to follow their passions and interests, to jump, take a leap, to just get started. And still, I didn't move. I was so overwhelmed with fear. Finally, in the last couple of weeks, I thought, you know what? So much time has passed. The market is flooded with podcasts. People's attention is spread so thin anyway. And why would anyone want to listen to me? What makes me so special? I'm too late. I thought to myself, I've got a 9 to 5 job that I enjoy. I'll just focus on that. And then it hit me. A year from now, when I look back over my list of goals, do I still want to not have ticked this off? I then happened upon a podcast episode by a pretty well-known YouTuber turned author by the name of Ali Abdaal. And he was talking about creating content with the aim of impacting one person, knowing that if your message touched just that one person, it would be enough. There have been many times where listening to someone else's content, I've been inspired to take action, to read something, or to have my views challenged. So I thought, yes, this is it. If I just reached one person at the end of this year, I'd prove to myself yet again that perfection is a trap, and I would be proud. I could keep my attention on my full-time job, and in my spare time, I could share some of what I was learning with other like minds or just with other people that could gain something from me sharing my experiences. So here I am with my imperfect podcast and its imperfect message. I'm showing up afraid to fail, still questioning all the moves I make. Is this too long? I should have added music or a different kind of music. My voice sounds weird after like the 100th take. But I'm posting it anyway. I'm overcoming slowly, steadily. I'm unsure of where this will all lead, yet I'm excited about what I'll learn as I go. So now on to my story. I was born in post-colonial Zambia in the mid-80s to a father from the Bisa tribe and a mother from the Bemba tribe. These are groups of people who inhabit the northern region of the country. I arrived to them as their third child and first daughter. My sister arrived 4 years later. My maternal grandfather had been a messenger for the colonial office that had a base in the village my mother was born in, and my maternal grandmother was a subsistence farmer growing mostly millet. They had 8 children between them, and my mother was the last born. My grandfather had a second wife, although I know little about her or the children they had together. My father was born to a fisherman, and like my maternal grandmother, his mother was a subsistence farmer growing mostly cassava. By Western standards, my grandparents were illiterate in that they couldn't communicate in the English language. And in my mind, this was an arbitrary grading wrongfully assigned because I saw it differently. They understood, spoke, and wrote in the language of their ancestors. They were deeply connected with nature and understood how to tend the land and animals, taking only what they needed. Theirs was a simple yet rich life that was ruled by seasons, family ties, cultural practice, celebration, and a deep sense of community. Then colonialism arrived with its own religion, a new language, and class, offering something, in inverted commas, better than what had existed before. My grandparents' and parents' names and many others in my homeland reflect this time in our history. My parents and their siblings were the first in their family lines to have attained a college education and amongst the first wave of Black Zambians to work in offices alongside their white counterparts. My mother as an administrator and my father an accountant for a large international professional services firm now called Deloitte. Their achievements were fraught with struggle, leaving their parents' homes whilst they were still young to live with extended family members in the cities so they could attend better schools. And in those circumstances, they weren't always treated with kindness or respect. I realize now how privileged I was to have been raised in a home with both parents, my maternal grandmother and all of my siblings together. I grew up in a middle-income household, never lacking, where family connection and service to others was prized, where weekends were about church and people, and every other day our home was open to many in need of shelter, a good conversation, or a meal. Sharing space with relatives was the norm and not something I particularly enjoyed. Yet, this was the burden of success, or as we refer to it in some Zambian circles, the black tax, that was imposed on my parents for their success. You couldn't just make it out on your own. You had to take everyone with you, regardless of the financial or emotional cost. We gathered together in the evenings around prayer and talking. This was a daily event. It didn't matter whether we had company over or felt embarrassed by it. The hymn books came out, the singing followed, as did the worship. These times I hold on to so dearly now. It was time to connect and get to know each other. We had dinners together as a family. We took the occasional family holiday at Christmas, and birthdays were celebrated loudly. My parents were social creatures, so on the weekends they hosted barbecues, or as we call them in Zambia, braais. The wine, beers, and soft drinks flowed. Our dining table was laden with food. The laughter was loud, and the company jovial and plentiful. The music played, and Dutch courage permitted the dance moves to be unleashed. As children, we stayed up way past our bedtime, peering through the glass doors of the living room, watching this all unfold, taking turns eavesdropping on the adult goss. We formed lifelong friendships with the children of the families in these social circles. We were taught love, generosity, kindness, and forgiveness, the value of hard work and education, respect for others, especially our elders, and unknowingly alongside that, a tidbit of people pleasing, a denial of self, duty, obligation, and service at all costs. The subconscious patterns and ideas had started to form. This is where it started for me. The foundational belief systems and conditioning had begun. There was so much good, and I owe my parents a depth of gratitude. They gave me all they had to give, and so much more than they ever received. They took me as far as they were supposed to and gave me their best. I'm thankful to them and their parents before them because I stand on their shoulders. From here onward, as I've grown more into myself, there's what continues to serve me and what I've sought and continue to seek to unlearn. But more on that later. For now, I invite you to consider and reflect on what shaped you. How do your roots influence your views? Why are you the way you are? Who taught you what you know? Have you ever questioned it? I'm here to share as much as I'm here to learn, and this is only the start. So I'll leave it here for today. I hope to see you back here next week for episode 2. In the meantime, be kind to yourself and others.